Okay, Amanda, I'm going to go ahead and get things started. Welcome everybody to today's webinar hosted by the Acres team here. My name is Ben Maddox. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Acres. I'm joined by Amanda Banks. Amanda?
Hey everyone, I'm Amanda Banks and I'm the Senior Product Manager here on the Acres team.
So we'll turn our cameras off here momentarily as we move through today's material, but just as a preview of what you're going to see today, we're going to spend the next 30 minutes going through some of our most recent data and feature releases. A lot of this has come out just in the month of January, so you may not even know you have access to these features. So we're going to cover them in detail. My job is going to be able to give you a high level overview of what they are and how they work, and then Amanda's actually going to show you in a brief demo how to actually access these things within the application, where that data lives, and how to use that information. As a reminder, we do allow a Q&A, so there's the ability to submit your questions here during the webinar. We'll answer them live on air as time permits. If we don't get to your question during the webinar, we'll answer offline after the webinar. We do answer every question we receive. So what we're going to show you today is how to move from research to outreach in just instead of cutting that research time from hours down into just a few minutes. Most importantly, we're going to show you how to do this before your competitors are able to do it using our Acres platform. So let's get right into it. Before we show you the new material this month, I want to highlight just what is Acres. So acres.com. Acres is your complete land intelligence platform. It's going to give you national data, daily updates, and it's all available on both your desktop and on your mobile device, Apple or Android. Acres works with developers and land teams to automate their lead prospecting, their site due diligence, and their deal tracking as well. While we're going to focus on what's new in Acres today, you can always schedule a demo at the acres.com website to see our full data platform. So let's begin to get into it here. When you're doing your own research, you might be looking for the perfect development site. It has the great location, right zoning, and it seems like it's available. But then you have to sift through dozens of tabs, data providers, and subscriptions. This is probably a familiar experience for many of you on the call. This process, as we mentioned, can take days, hours, to put together that whole picture of the property you're evaluating. Acres changes that. So while your competitors are busy juggling different platforms and subscriptions and trying to track down property owners, you're already several steps ahead of them when you use Acres. That is what early visibility looks like in action. Sorry. Before we get into the actual data that we provide, I also want to highlight that we have a real-time data tracker live on our website. So we take data really seriously here at Acres. That's why we provide the most recent up-to-date data for every data file on that page. We know that for our customers, it's not just about coverage, but it's also about recency. So if you're tired of dealing with out-of-date data, check out this real-time tracker. It'll give you a lot of information about when the most recent update was right here on our website. So on to the release. So we're going to cover this kind of feature by feature or data set by data set. So we'll go through each of them, do a quick use case, and like I said, we'll get into a quick video overview as well. So let's look at our first data that we're going to highlight today. This is one of the more popular user requests we've had over time, and that's skip tracing for emails and phone numbers. Acres already provides the ability to build a targeted direct mail list inside the application that allows you to send mail directly to landowners throughout the United States. But now we also provide phone numbers and email addresses for parcel owners across the US as well. We see land acquisition teams and brokers using this data to accelerate their prospecting and outreach efforts. So now in Acres, you can actually search for land that meets your exact criteria and instantly contact the owner. You'll see a screenshot of where that information lives. Again, we'll cover it in our video overview. So for those of you paying for separate programs outside of Acres for this same data, you now get access to this at no additional cost inside of your enterprise level subscription. That's going to be a common theme we hit on today of our goal of combining all of your platforms and subscriptions into one single place. So let's take a look at our next feature. Our next feature is real-time imagery. Have you ever wanted to track down a project status each week, but you did not want to get in the truck and drive around and look at that site? How much time do you think you probably spend inspecting and monitoring new developments in person? You can now track those developments from your office every single week using Acres. Horizontal and vertical developments can all be easily tracked with our weekly imagery feature. One thing I want to call out on the screen here is I've got a overview of this feature. You'll notice the most recent data, and I took this screenshot just a day or two ago, was February 7th. And so what we're doing is providing you weekly overflights on key areas to track everything from obviously moving dirt, right? That horizontal development process, but also building construction, road construction, a lot of information that will tell you what is the status of this project. Interestingly enough, this example I chose on the screen actually shows you over time from March 2025 through last week how that site has evolved and how they've developed it, which gives you some sense of is my competitor bringing new inventory into the market in real time and how fast are they moving towards that? So let's take a look at the next feature. Street View. So this was kind of a last minute addition for us. I didn't know if we were going to get it into today's webinar, but that just kind of shows you how quickly we're building here at Acres. We now support Street View inside of the acres.com platform. So in addition to that real-time imagery, you can easily track project progress from the ground. We know that our clients are using this to evaluate properties, examine access issues for properties, and even look at project development progress. Here, we obviously have a single family home being constructed. This is something you can track in real time right inside the application as a pop-out window to look at Street View inside of Acres. So this is just one more way that we're trying to combine all the different platforms you might be using into one place. All right, traffic counts. So this is another one we were really excited to bring to you. We work with a lot of site selection teams who are searching for the perfect location for their next development. Until now, traffic volume has been really scattered, right? You got to go to municipal data sources, state highway departments, even some federal data sets to get this information. For our enterprise customers, Acres now provides national daily traffic volumes all in one simple dashboard. So our clients are using this data to identify growth corridors, potential bottlenecks, and maybe even overlooked assets that are in a great spot that no one has picked up yet. So you can start researching your next development using the traffic data in the Acres library. Amanda will show you how to do that in just a moment. So building on the theme of trying to get you everything in one place is national building permits. So like traffic data, building permits are really hard to track. This information typically lives at the city level, and that's going to be tens of thousands of municipal offices and data sets that often require expensive third-party subscriptions. So we now provide building permit data directly in the layer library at no cost to enterprise users. This data not only allows you to search by permit type, but you can also now view the permit owner as well. You'll see here I'm tracking a particular home builder that has a bunch of construction permits they've pulled. This is a really helpful sort of ground truthing tool. If you combine the weekly satellite imagery, the Google Street View, as well as the building permits, you now get a really definitive signal on what's happening on this property. And this is also a very new feature in the last week that we're pretty excited to bring because it's a partnership. So we partnered with the company Hamlet, they're a data provider. And ultimately, what the partnership with Hamlet provides to you is access to over 3,000 city and county governments right inside of Acres. So when we talk to clients, they increasingly tell us it's not where can I build, but whether public sentiment will allow you to build that project there. I think we've probably seen this with data centers most notably, but this also applies to things like rezoning requests. So the sentiment data layer inside of Acres now provides numerical ratings that show you local support or opposition to rezoning applications and data center developments. This allows you to avoid wasted time and sunk costs by researching local development sentiment before you buy a property. So really what you've seen here is we've combined world-class imagery assets alongside traffic, building permits, and public sentiment to give you a 360-degree view of your next development. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm actually going to share a video, and my colleague Amanda is going to come on, and she's actually going to walk you through where all this information lives inside of the Acres platform. So Amanda, if you're ready to go, I'll go ahead and start the video, and you can walk us through what we're seeing in real time.
Sounds great, Ben. All right, let's dive into it. We're currently viewing the Raleigh area with the vehicle traffic layer on for North Carolina. And first, I'm just going to quickly cover how to work with layers and get them onto your map. And then we're going to dive into the ones that Ben has been talking about. If I go to layers on the left-hand side here, first I see the browse side, which for our enterprise users will give full access to nearly 4,500 layers. If you toggle this option here to all, you will see that, and you'll be able to search and filter through all of them. I'm going to go over to my folders side, and here you can see that I've made a few folders, including one for today's webinar, and I've already gone ahead and added a few of these layers to my map. They're not all visible currently because I'm not ready to work with them just yet, but I have added them to my map, and that gives me quick access to work with them in this little layers menu that we have on the map down on this button right here. So the layers button on the left is really for diving into the full catalog of available layers. And then once you have the ones that you want to work with for that day, you can just use this little menu. This gives you a quick way to do things like toggle them on and off, jump back into filters for that layer or the information, or even show the legend. So here we can see that the brighter the color, the more traffic we have. And I'm going to go ahead and close that and zoom in further on this area here. We've got a heavily traveled road here, and I'm going to zoom in and take a closer look. And I'll go ahead and turn on this building permits layer. So all of these blue dots have now shown up, and if I open the legend, we can see that the light blue is associated with building, whereas the dark blue is associated with demolition. If I click on this dot here, we'll get more information. So it looks like this person is getting ready to demolish a garage. I'll do another one. And this one is for demolishing a residential dwelling. I'm going to zoom in even more, so we'll see even more of those dots popping in. And we can tell here that we've found a developing neighborhood. So we've already got the split lots showing here. And then this one hasn't quite gotten to that phase yet. I'm going to go ahead and click on this parcel so that we can check on the status of all of this by looking at the most recent imagery. So if we open the recent imagery section here and go ahead and click on the first image that we see, we can immediately tell by the color change that this area has been cleared, at least partially. And we can also tell that there are homes built here now. I can scroll a little further down and see further back images. So this one that we're viewing right now is from only 4 days ago. And we can click on this one from September and really appreciate the difference where here we can see these homes on only one side of the street versus the 4 days ago where we have homes on both sides. Excuse me, if we go even further back to January, we can still see that cleared area, but not near the progress on the homes. So this is a really great way to get a sense of the speed of development for a particular project. At this point, I now know that I'm in a fairly high traffic area and I can see that development is happening. And if I turn on the owner names for the parcels here, that is a really quick way to see that this is Stanley Martin Homes, for example. And that information is on the building permits as well. So we can see here that they're building townhouses and that it's Stanley Martin Homes. And now I may want to go ahead and start looking for my own place to build. So I'm going to bring my layers back up and I'm going to turn off the building permits for now, and I'm going to turn on the zoning. We can see by opening the legend that the orange areas that we've been looking at are residential. So if, for example, we are looking to work with residential developments, we can be looking around for similar areas. And here I can see something that appears to already be zoned residential and also still owned by an individual. Now, even though this is probably the zone type that I want to work with, if we were looking at a rezoning situation, one thing that we could also do is take a moment to look at the rezoning and land use sentiment layer from Hamlet. I'm going to zoom out for a moment and turn that on. We will click on that dot and we will see that for Raleigh, the sentiment is 52 with a high confidence. And if we look at the legend for this, that is pretty positive. So hopefully if we did end up needing to rezone anything, that would be a relatively straightforward process. I'm going to go ahead and turn the sentiment layer off and zoom back into the parcel we were looking at. And now that we've found a parcel we want to dive into, I'm going to go ahead and turn that zoning off, and I'm going to then click on that parcel. Here we can see all kinds of information for this property. At the top, we have everything from the assessor, including previous sale information and the assessed value. And then if we scroll down, we will see the recent imagery option, as well as historical imagery. We have several years available there going back to 2010. The elevation for this property, it looks like we've got a 5.5% slope with a 38-foot range from the lowest point to the highest point. We've got 3.3% of the property with wetlands, but nothing in the flood zone, so that's great. There's also soil information, land cover information, and then many more layers to be explored. We do try to highlight some specific layers, including power transmission lines, railroads, and school districts. For this property, we see that it's in the Wake County School District. There are also environmental risk layers, which can be viewed individually as well, and we flag if they contain data points on or near the property. So let's go ahead and say that we've done all of our due diligence on this property. We are ready to potentially reach out to the owner, Richard. And so back up at the top, I'm going to click on this Get Contact Info button in the parcel details section. And this will bring up the name, address, phone numbers, and email addresses associated with this parcel and this name. It looks like we've got some pretty promising contact information here. So that is fantastic. And this can also be copied and used elsewhere if needed. So now that we've found this parcel that we're interested in, I'm going to select this, and then I'm going to save it. I'll call this Richard's Place, and I'm going to go ahead and give this a status of opportunity since we've already kind of done our due diligence, and then I'm going to save that. And that way I can come back to this at any time. This map is going to live in my portfolio with everything else in my pipeline. In addition to keeping track of this property and its status, I can even comment and rope my teammates into this. So I could tag Ben, for example, and say, this one is ready for reaching out, and send that. And then Ben will receive both in-app and email notifications that I've tagged him on this project. And he will have access to all of the same information and any additional notes and comments that I've made. And that is a quick overview of how you might incorporate all of these different layers into your process with your team. I hope you've all enjoyed the overview of our January release. Here at Acres, we build fast, which is why I'm also excited to share with you that our next release webinar, currently scheduled for March 2nd, will take a deep dive into our AI-powered search tools. Without spoiling too much, you will learn about our proprietary AI chatbot, which partners with you on site research. If you're curious about local setbacks, building height requirements, or simply how long obtaining a conditional use permit might take, our AI chat will answer all of that and more instantly. Our early beta users have really been enjoying this and are reporting that they are saving hours of work on each project. So we can't wait to share the full details with you in our March 2nd webinar, and a registration link will be sent out for that this week.
So Amanda, I am shocked that we finished on time. So I think we probably will have a moment for Q&A here. So let me get that pulled up for those of you online. Please go ahead and submit your questions. There's one about whether we're recording this, and the short answer is yes, we're recording this. I believe the plan is to send out a recording to all of today's registrants, so you should be able to review any of this information on the recording that we send out after the webinar. There's a question about when is Street View available? Great question. So I mentioned that we added that to this presentation at the very last moment. So everything you saw today is live now inside of Acres. Street View will be live this Friday. So thank you for that question and for that clarification. I knew someone was going to catch it. It was a very last minute addition this morning to our presentation. So everything is live with the exception of Street View, which should be live on Friday inside of your Acres accounts. There's a question about general data availability. So, are these new data elements available across Oklahoma? And the short answer is yes. So, we are a national data platform, right? So, what does that mean? It means everything that you saw today, including parcel information, transaction data, mortgage information. We have a national presence for all that data. People also ask us beyond coverage, how up to date is everything? And I would say, as a general rule of thumb, our cadastral data sets, so property ownership, property lines, those are going to be on monthly cadence as records come in and are updated. But other things are more of like a daily cadence, right? So that would be some of our data layers, things like imagery. So there's going to be much more frequent update cadence as frequently as daily for some of those. So national coverage, including Oklahoma, and very frequent updates, which again, you can track actually on our website with that data recency tracker. So question about whether you can view traffic data over time. Right now, no. So this is going to be an average daily traffic count for, all these roads across the United States. So it's going to be average daily traffic count and not a change in traffic count over time. It's an interesting question, something we could look at in the future, but right now it's just average daily traffic count. So again, that's going to be a composite of many days during a year, but meant to be an average. Amanda, there's a question here that maybe I'll defer to you about environmental risk data. Of course, you showed a few of those in the video walkthrough, everything from I think we had like underground storage tanks and maybe even radon potential for someone building a house. Where does some of that information come from? Could you give a sense of that?
Um, yes, I am blanking on some of the big acronyms for these companies that love to make this
Well,
data.
I think I
All
think
of the
go
all of
ahead.
that information is in the app though. So for any of our data layers, if you go into that layer, there's a details tab that you can click and that will list the source and we'll typically have a link to the source as well. So if you want to go find more information on the website, you can.
Yeah. Someone asked for a clarification on what is Hamlet. So Hamlet is a independent third-party company. You can check out their website, just search for Hamlet Data. And they are a new partner to Acres, and they provide basically public sentiment data. So you saw Amanda evaluate that property she was looking at, and it said it had a high confidence that there would be support for something like a rezoning application. So if you're trying to take something from maybe ag zoning to residential zoning, that would be a rezoning application. So we partner with them to present a portion of their data inside of Acres, certainly not everything that they provide, but a portion of it. And it's a really good indicator of before you go buy a property, am I going to be able to use it the way that I intend to use it once I start development? So thanks for highlighting that. And we're excited about the partnership with Hamlet. So, question about, do you have many professional surveyors using the software? Short answer is yes. So one thing we didn't cover today, which because it's been live in Acres for almost a year now, would be our AI deep plotter. So what is that? Well, it takes a meets and bounds legal description. That's sort of the strange series of nomenclature and numbers like rods and chains and degrees that you would see on something like a survey, and it allows you to instantly map that inside of Acres. So basically, you just copy and paste that whole legal description, and our little AI robot will read that and actually create the digital boundaries inside of the Acres application. So yes, we have a lot of surveyors using Acres. I would say the two things that they get the most value out of would be that AI deed plotter, and then the other item would be it sounds kind of basic, but the topography that we have is actually LiDAR imagery. And what I've been told is that it's incredibly accurate across a property down to the tenth of a foot level interval. So if you're someone that's working with steep slopes or you have a lot of dirt you got to move, I've been told that our LiDAR imagery is particularly useful to our professional surveyors out there. So I hope you sign up and check out Acres. Amanda, I'm just taking them as I go, but if you see one you want to answer, just jump in there.
Yeah, let's see. I see one about where do we pull listings from, which show on our listings tab. And so we have a few different listing partners, and that includes My State MLS, Land Broker MLS, and RealStack, among others. We also have some listings that are put in manually by the brokers themselves. So it's a unique hodgepodge.
Yeah, I would say our our listings data is provided by a lot of our clients, frankly, who either have a direct connection to us or they manage listings maybe manually, but a lot of our broker clients also present their listings on the acres.com platform. Someone's got a question about, can I search for parcels that are zoned agricultural that might be near commercial centers? Answer is absolutely. So you can come into our system. As you guys are probably aware, I think we have a pretty educated audience on the call. Zoning data is really distributed, right? It's across all these city offices, sometimes county offices. And so what we do is we aggregate and collate all that zoning data across the United States and we present it inside of our layer library. And so if you're looking for a particular town, I live in Fayetteville, Arkansas, for example, you can search Fayetteville zoning, it'll come right up. And then what you could do is you basically just trim the data set. So you could say, all right, I don't need to look at every type of zoning in Fayetteville, just trim this data set for only the agriculturally zoned properties. And that will then appear on the screen trimmed as just the areas of interest. And you can easily identify and select which ones probably have the best value for you in terms of your intended use. And then you can also see the underlying landowners in that zoning area and create either a direct mail list or maybe like a skip tracing list, whatever you want to do. You can use that zoning layer to filter down to exactly what you're looking for. We see a lot of people doing that for lead lists and prospected lists.
I see a question here which says, for sold land, is there a recommended way to research for related parties? And they say they usually use ChatGPT and their knowledge of land value, but sometimes that's a dead end. And so if I'm understanding this correctly, I think that would be a great use case for our asset intelligence feature. And that can be accessed directly through a particular parcel if you're already viewing one, or you can go directly to it through the search bar at the top left of the screen. If you click that, you'll see an asset intelligence button, and that allows you to view different owner names or LLCs tied to the same address. And you can play with the tool a few different ways, but it'll give you a really cool spider web type graph of how they're all connected, and also throw all of it on the map. And it gives you a lot to work with.
There's a question about municipal sewer and water data. So, like zoning, this is a really tricky one to track down. It lives in tens of thousands of places. So, we do have municipal sewer and water for, I guess, several thousand cities now. Obviously, we focused on the largest towns. We'll continue to expand coverage. But if you were looking for that data set, you would just type in your town's name and maybe the word sewer, and you'll get a short list of data files that might match those requirements. Keep in mind, those data files will typically include the metadata. So what that means is if you see a line on the map after you open the sewer layer, just click on that line. And the line will tell you, okay, this is a 8-inch sewer line. It'll give you a lot of information about, can I tie into this? Is it big enough for my intended use? So always make sure when you're interacting with the data overlays in Acres that you actually click on those and obtain some of the metadata. It's pretty fascinating stuff. Someone asked me about, I did want to cover this. When we showed the weekly imagery, someone says, well, it looked a little fuzzy. And that's so what we do is we have two types of imagery, really three types of imagery now that we have Street View. So first is our high res imagery. So we'll have 15 years of high res imagery where you can cycle through the years and look at exactly what you need and a pretty fine level of detail. For the weekly imagery, what we've done is we've traded off the resolution for the frequency, right? So they're different tools for different projects. If you want a weekly overflight, that's going to give you the signal that, hey, they've broken ground on this project. There's a new road being developed. Maybe they cleared the lot of trees. You can see all of that on the weekly imagery. If you're looking for a really high resolution image, we still have that. It just lives in the historical imagery portion of our application. So depending on your use case, you're going to use a different type of imagery to get the answer you're looking for when you're evaluating a site. Let's take maybe one or two more, Amanda, being cognizant of time.
Yeah, this one I thought was interesting. Someone asked if we had a comprehensive list of the layers that was outside of the app, and I hadn't heard that question before. And it's a great question because we're adding new layers constantly. Like I said, we're at right about 4,500 right now, and so it's not something we have currently, but it's something that we've talked about getting built maybe even this quarter. So hopefully soon.
Okay, I like this one. It'll make this our last question because it actually hints at some features we didn't cover today, but have been new to the Acres platform in the last probably 4 to 5 months. Someone asked, how do I determine the mailing address for a corporately owned property that might have multiple properties? So kind of hard to explain verbally, but if you want a demo, I can walk you through it, but I'll explain it the best I can. So when you're inside the Acres application, you click on a property that you think is owned by a corporation. Maybe it says LLC or something like that. And then you have two options. You can either click on search by mailing address and it'll open up everything else they own. This is really helpful because it searches every county assessor's office in one search. And it also ties together different entities and real persons that all report to that same tax address. So where does the mail go for paying property tax? That's your key indicator for tying together all these different actors. Now, the second thing, which is relatively new to Acres, is our entity mapping. So what does that mean? Well, it means that you can click on one of these corporate ownerships and see not only the properties that they own, but you can also see all the purchases they've made and the different financings they have through our mortgage data layer, all in one single screen. So again, that's a pretty advanced feature. And if you kind of want to take a deeper look at it, please schedule a demo. Just go to acres.com. You can sign up for a demo. We'll walk you through that. But great question. And I think this is probably the most participation we've had, Amanda, on a recent webinar. So we're really glad you guys joined us today. A recording will be coming out probably by the end of today. And I appreciate everybody's interest, and we'll be following up with you after today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.